relationships don't happen overnight. People have walls, people have boundaries, people have trauma. Like everybody has something that they're going through. So respect it.
Thanks for being on Winning Wednesday. It's really great to have just someone like you on the show. You're very different than any other guest I've had, so it's exciting to have you here. And I'm looking forward to diving into your story. So if you want to just open with a personal professional check-in and maybe share something the audience might not know about you.
Yeah, my name's Libby Larkin. I'm from New York. I'm a songwriter, so most of the time I'm just working on briefs for different labels and companies and kind of reaching out to artists and collaborating with them. It's kind of like I'm like a musical therapist that like you go into a session and you're like, oh, what's going on in your life? And we just talk about it for 3 hours and then write a whole song about it. That's a little bit about me. I do TikTok and I'm not ashamed and I'm working on that because for so long I was like, I do TikTok, don't look at me, please don't touch me. But at the end of the day, it's done wonders for my career and I'm grateful for it. And it's so much fun. I have so much fun doing it and I need to just accept that.
Yeah, just own it. What would you say to someone who hasn't started with TikTok or is in that same phase of like not owning it?
If you're an artist, just fucking do it. Because TikTok is a platform that is made for you being your organic, weird self. Like people divulge their deepest, darkest secrets to just have other people validate them and being like, dude, I struggle with the same thing. You're not alone. And that's something that I loved about it is that I am a fool, like literally a verified fool. That's what I call myself. And I love that part of my personality. And on Instagram, it's always about like how hot you look, like how can you make your aesthetic and your page like look a certain way, and like your stories it's all facades, like it's fake. And there's a part of TikTok that's like that too, but the majority, if you get on the right algorithm, is just people being idiots, and I am obsessed with that. Like I feel safe on TikTok. So if you're an artist and you want to get your art out there and you want to expose yourself and your vulnerability, don't be afraid to do it, because it's transformative, dude. Like it's changed so many artists' lives. Like so many people that would have never gotten a chance. Like it really popped them off. So,
right.
I love it. I was going through a breakup when I released my EP back in February. And when I tell you, it was just like inspirational, like shit that I needed. And then once I was like getting out of like the cusp of heartbreak, it just kept feeding it to me. And I was like, okay, I'm not
right.
Okay, I'm not
interested anymore.
Yeah. But like they know to change it. Like it changes based off of what videos you're liking and you can inform them and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like it brought a lot of comfort to queer people being like, hey, you might be a little gay. You might be a little gay, and that's okay, because we're all like a little something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it definitely is a spectrum. And I think we're not really taught that growing up, especially if you're growing up in a more traditional segment of society. At least for me, like that just looked like, you know, a white neighborhood and church. So those things aren't taught in those spaces at all. And I think just exposing ourselves to different ways of thinking and different people really helps us to branch out.
The amount of people that I've met on TikTok that are across the world that are now some of my best friends, I'm like, when did this happen? Like I literally, it drives me crazy. Like how have I not seen this? I just love learning about social media in general and like algorithms and like understanding like what is like grab somebody's attention. And so from there, I started building my own brand from it.
How can you learn about algorithms like that? Like, how are you studying them?
The way that I learned about the TikTok algorithm is that they give it to like piles. So like you have 2 hours, they give it to a random group of people and see how it does on a graph. And then if it gets a certain amount of points, it goes to the next batch of people, which is a larger demographic that are all on the same algorithm.
To your point about just socializing globally through these virtual digital platforms, that's something that came out for me as well throughout the pandemic. I created this show because I wanted to show people how easy it is to meet new people, how easy it is to network. Almost everyone I've had on the show, I've never met them in person. They're from all around the world, and I never would have organically met them if it wasn't for their basically virtual persona, whatever their like digital resume looks like, you know, whether it's something like TikTok or on LinkedIn itself. However you're personally branding yourself on the internet is how people see you nowadays. And they're not necessarily going to have that organic chance to meet you, and you're not necessarily going to get that first impression chance.
People just want to be seen and people want to be heard. So if you go into a social setting and you're like, you get to know the person and then you get to know what they do, it invites them to get the desire to collaborate with you. So if you go into a setting and you're like, listen, I want to network with you, but I'm not going to direct it towards networking. I want to get to know you as a person and then we'll talk about work. That's how I've been successful with networking and like getting to know people, is that like I just want to get to know as a person and then later talk about work and stuff.
What is the value in figuring out yourself first and then bringing that authentic self to work prior to getting your job done?
We're all just humans kind of working. We're trying to get the same goal. It's like, what's wrong with like acknowledging that somebody else might be going through the same thing that you're going through, or acknowledging the stresses that they're going through? Like that might actually make you feel less alone. And I feel like that's something to acknowledge. That's the thing. We're all searching for validation.
I don't work with people that are typically like me, so I don't feel like it's organically going to be a safe space to have dialogues like that.
I've worked with a ton of homophobic people. There are some people that I'm like, the only reason why you're homophobic is because of the way that you were raised, and it's a lack of awareness. But why not get to know somebody and then start to care about them? Relationships don't happen overnight. People have walls, people have boundaries, people have trauma. Like everybody has something that they're going through. So respect it, but also be patient with people and be open to having those conversations later on down the line. Nobody owes you anything in this world. The only thing that people owe you is respect and kindness. And that's it.
Just in terms of your journey in the world, personally, professionally, however that's been, and identifying as a non-binary person and what that's been like for you, using all the pronouns, and just like existing in the world as yourself, what advice you would have for someone else who's on a similar journey?
I mean, honestly, it took me a really long time to accept it. Like, what strikes emotion in you? That's what my therapist says all the time. And like, when it strikes emotion in you, dissect it. So when someone would call me they, them, it gave me butterflies. And I was like, oh, I feel validated. Like I feel seen. Most of my friends refer to me as she, her, because they've known me. They'll like sneak in pronouns here and there, and I'll be like, if you want to experiment with it, why not? You can always change it. Nothing is permanent. Everything is transitory. So you can take time to explore something and then come back out of it and be like, I think this worked for me. This didn't work for me, whatever. So right now in my life, I feel fluid. I feel validated in that. And for a long time, I thought it was not going to be permanent, but now I'm at a place now where I'm like, nah, this is who I am. You know what I mean?
Why aren't you afraid of being wrong or doing something wrong?
I went through a really bad breakup. I fucked up. I recorded these people because they weren't telling me the truth secretly. And then I released it in my EP and went viral on TikTok. And the day that I released it, it was like a knot in my stomach. And I was like, this is a sign for me to change it. So what I did is that I had my friends re-record it. It's all the same dialogue, but it's different people that are doing it. In that moment, I had to realize that you cannot control how somebody sees you. Everybody has a different perception of you or perspective of you, and you have to let it go. You cannot control it, so let it go. So this idea of like trying to satisfy, like I want everybody to love me, and it's all gonna happen, fuck that. Not everybody's gonna like you, and you need to accept it. And so from that EP and that experience, that opened up this whole lesson, this door for me that I like explored for so long, being like, holy shit. I was like, I fucked up, I took accountability, and it was changed the next day. And I've grown from this because I've learned that I don't give a fuck about what people think about me. I don't care about what they think about whether or not it was art or not, because it was art to me. And that's all that matters.
And can you tell us about your song Wrong Places?
Yes.
And where that came from?
Yeah. I was good friends with this girl for a long time. She identified as straight, but whenever she would get drunk, she would hit on me. She was my ex's best friend too. And I know that people make mistakes when they're drunk. You're inebriated, the whole decision-making skills are completely warped. I get that. It's not an excuse. She kept coming up to me and like moaning in my ear and grabbing me and like doing all this stuff to get a rise out of me because she wanted my attention. And I kept pushing her off, and I literally left, called my songwriting partner, Joe. We wrote the song in 30 minutes, and it's the best song that I feel like we've ever written together. It's out on all platforms. If you want to check it out, it's called Wrong Places.
And I know we're coming up on time, but because this is for Pride, I did want to ask like what Pride looks like to you this year or even last year, just as an extension of the pandemic, because I know a lot of things have been canceled.
Pride was never for us. Pride was for multi-million-dollar businesses to flash off the fact that like, we accept everybody, except in our workplace when we have like specific rules about who we hire and blah, blah, blah. So Pride will never exist for me anymore. I celebrate being gay every day, but I would rather go and do a protest like we did last year than ever do a fucking parade again.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say that.
Trans women of color, trans men of color, these people that have had their voices shut down forever. That's what Pride needs to be about. white queer people have it so fucking easy, man. And I know nothing about it, but from a large majority of my friends that are non-binary queer people of color, trans people of color, their lives are unbelievably difficult. It's time to take a step back and use our voices and our platforms to kind of bring more acknowledgement to that when Pride season comes around, because I think that that's what's the most important part.
You do have all this artistic energy and you're in all these different places. You're uninhibited, like you're not afraid of it.
Anything that I feel like I want to explore, I'm going to do it, because why the fuck not?
Yeah.
There's nothing holding you back except for yourself, so fucking do it.
And you touched even on how you relate with your pronouns, just feeling that energy. So is it similar with art or similar with trying new things? It's just like a feeling that you got?
Yeah, it's like, I think things kind of happen organically, you know what I mean? And I think that there are times where I'm feeling super artistic and driven, and there are other times where I'm not. And I think that it's just about listening to yourself and listening to your instinct. People ignore it all the time because they get too far in their head, and it's
Right.
your ego gets in the way, and the ego it's there to protect you, but the ego is also will destroy you. So,
And just my last question, it's what's your favorite way to win Wednesday?
call the person that means the most to you. Have a conversation. Check in with them. There's something about just like getting in touch with somebody that means a lot to you, even if it's like a 2-minute conversation. And like check in with somebody and like see how they're doing. Take a step away from yourself for a second and like, give a little.
Especially because life is too short, and I think we're not like mindful of our death too often.
Yeah.
But a phone call, especially if you can't see them in person.
Phone call. Don't text them. I know it's easier because everybody has phone anxiety nowadays, but like go and just give them a call.